Number 5. So this happened to me last summer when I was back at my parents' house during the holidays. It was around 3 a.m. and I was in my room on my computer when I got a call from my sister. Now, that was already a little bit weird since my sister's room is just down the hallway from mine, and she could have just come into my room. I went to pick up and the call ended as soon as I reached the phone. I figured she wanted to speak with me, so I got up and went to her room. As soon as I reached the door, she started screaming that someone was in the room with her, so I busted in and of course nobody was there. After she stopped crying, she told me that she woke up and saw a dark shadow just centimeters away from her face, and that's when she screamed. So I told her that she called me. She told me that her phone wasn't even in the room and that she was sleeping. Sure enough, her phone was actually downstairs in her purse. The weird part is that I have the log of her call on my phone, but she doesn't. Never been able to explain this one. Number 4. About 4 years ago, I woke up one late morning on a day off at around 10:21 a.m. You'll learn why I remember this 4 years later in just a second. I got out of bed, used the restroom, got dressed, etc. I went back into my room and picked up my phone to check for messages, and the clock on the phone said 10:25. I was surprised because I knew that it didn't take only 4 minutes for me to get dressed. I'd lingered in the warm bathroom quite a while and brushed my teeth too. I looked at my bedroom alarm clock to confirm since that was the clock I'd looked at when I woke up. It also said 10:25. I shrugged it off and figured in my sleepy just woke up state I'd misread the original 10:21. I went downstairs, turned on my computer, and turned on the news on the TV to listen to and started cooking breakfast. I wanted to microwave up some rice leftovers from last night, so I went to pop them in the microwave. The time on the microwave was 10:25. I whipped out my phone to check the time. It still said 10:25. There was no way that I checked the clock upstairs, walked downstairs, turned on the PC and TV, got a glass of water, started cooking eggs, all in less than a minute. I decided to stand there and watch the microwave clock counting to 60. I figured if it didn't turn to 10:26 in 60 seconds or less, clearly it was malfunctioning. Well, it turned to 10:26 about 20 seconds into my count, which made sense, as it had been 10:25 for a while before I looked. I finished making my breakfast, plated it up, and took it over to the PC like the lonely slob I am. The time on the PC said 10:20. I pulled out my phone also said 10:20. That's when I started writing all of this down. I pulled up the little clock toolbar and watched the second hand go around. While I watched it, time seemed to pass normally. It ticked to 10:21, then 10:22 as I watched the second hand just keep going around. Over the next what felt like an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half, all the clocks in my house seemed to pass time normally while I observed them. But if I looked away for a while, or even just for a moment or two, they'd make no sense. At one point, about 15 minutes after those events, the cell phone and PC read 10:14, then later 10:13, then back into the 10:20s. After about an hour and a half, they all normalized, and I never experienced this again. Number 3. I had this weird experience once. I was in high school talking with a girl whom a mutual friend of ours suggested we meet. I had met her only once in person before this incident, but we did seem to hit it off well and spoke on the phone often. For now, I'll call her Michelle. Anyway, this was before cell phones, and both of our families only had one phone line and supposedly one phone. We had spent a fair amount of time on the phone this evening together before the weirdness started happening. So I don't remember what exactly we were talking about, probably music or something, and it was really late, probably about 11 o'clock on a school night, when all of a sudden a click noise interrupted us. It was quite pronounced, then ringing. I immediately said hello, thinking we somehow got disconnected, but as it's ringing, I can still hear Michelle saying, "Are you still there?" The ringing stops and a little girl answers. She says, "Hello? It's so late, why are you calling me?" I don't remember the specifics, but we tried to have a brief conversation with the person who sounded like a little girl. Stuff like, "What's your name and where are you from?" Though she didn't seem to answer any of it. In between our discussion with the little girl, we keep asking each other, "Do you have another phone in your house? And are you messing with me?" But the girl finally just said all innocent like, "Okay, it was nice talking with you, but I have to go." Then she abruptly hung up. We were both dumbfounded. We only had just started wrapping our heads around it when it clicked and started ringing again. "Hello," said the little girl again, but this time there was a bit of agitation in her voice. She said something like, "It's so late, "Please, I don't want to get in trouble." We tried explaining to her that we weren't calling her, but she wasn't really cognizant of our words. The girl just kept saying, "Please stop or I'll get in trouble." Then it was "Okay, bye," and a hang up noise again. Michelle and I are really tripping out and decided to hang up ourselves and call each other back. We do, and we talk for another few minutes, but the same noise returns and then ringing. It's the same little girl voice, but this time it's really angry. She says, "Hello? Why do you keep calling me? I told you I would get in trouble. Why do you want me to get in trouble?" We pleaded with her to admit what was happening. We also tried to explain that we weren't doing anything, but she was non-responsive to our words directly. She just said over and over about how she would get in trouble, and then another "okay, goodbye," and stopped calling, then she hung up. Michelle and I were really freaked out and actually started arguing. Each one of us sure that the other one was tricking us. It turned into a "this isn't funny, stop this lame joke" conversation. She refused to believe that I wasn't doing anything and started telling me how messed up this is. Michelle starts threatening to hang up when the phone finally answers and we both hear a loud metal scraping distortion sound and just a bunch of scratching noise and then screaming. It was so loud and so much that it hurt my ears. Within a moment, I hung up and immediately tried calling Michelle back. Michelle answers but is crying. She tells me that I was a jerk to play such a cruel joke on her. She hung up and I never heard from her again. The next morning, our mutual friend was all upset with me, telling me what a messed up joke it was. I repeatedly told her that I didn't do anything. Eventually, she believed me and tried talking to Michelle. Michelle was convinced I was behind it all and wouldn't talk with me anymore. So all in all, I figured one of 4 things happened. Michelle had another phone line and someone in her family was messing with us without Michelle knowing. Or the phone literally messed up and malfunctioned whilst calling the same girl over and over again. Or there was some weird glitch or supernatural thing. Or what I believe is the most plausible, Michelle grew bored of talking with me and decided an elaborate method was required to generate a reason to give me the boot. It was all really weird. Number 2. This happened about 15 years ago. I called my friend up and he wasn't home, so I left a message on his answering machine. I said, "Hey, it's me. Sorry I missed you. Call me later. Bye." And then I hung up and left the house. I made no other calls, but later that day he called back and said, "Wow, that was quite the message you left. Who was that girl you were talking to?" I asked him, "What are you talking about? I wasn't talking to any girl." Well, as it turns out, the message didn't end after I said bye. I had to go over to his house and listen to the message a few different times. After my initial message that I did leave as quoted above, there was a slight pause, and then it continued for another 30 to 40 seconds or so with me talking to some girl. It was my voice, but it was a conversation I never had with a girl whose voice I didn't recognize. You could compare it to the message I know I did leave, and the two voices were indistinguishable. Not just in the voice, but in the talking mannerisms. It was my voice. Also, references to my occupation and activities were exactly the same. Basically, in this conversation, I was talking to a girl about going skiing, but I had to go down to my shop and work on a car first, which totally correlated to me. Then the message just stopped. It was recorded on one of those digital answering machines that recorded a message to a chip, so there was no tape that I could have taken and analyzed, unfortunately. Also, neither I or my friend had party lines, so that's not an explanation. It was very freaky and I can't explain it. Number 1. This is quite an old story, but it's stuck in my memory because it seems so weird and I haven't been able to explain it since. One summer evening, I attended a party held at a local hotel. After the party, I arrived home at midnight and I was getting ready for bed. Just before I got into bed, I switched off my mobile phone and put it back into my handbag, turning off the bedroom light. But the very second I switched the light off, the most scary music started playing. It was extremely creepy music. I'd never heard it before, but I knew it must be coming from my phone, so I switched the light back on and fetched it out of my handbag. It started blaring out this tune really loudly, even though I had pressed the off button 5 seconds earlier. I was so confused. I frantically kept pressing the off button, but whatever I pressed, it simply would not stop. The screen was completely white and none of the usual icons were visible. I flipped the lid closed and the tune stopped for a couple seconds, but then it started blaring out again. At this point, I felt quite freaked out and I went and showed the phone to my parents as I knew they'd be wondering what the noise was. In the end, I removed the battery and the SIM card and we could finally enjoy a peaceful night's sleep. When I woke in the morning, I put the battery and SIM card back into the phone and it was behaving normally as if nothing had ever happened. What's even more spooky though is that I looked through my directory of ringtones and listened to each one individually, yet I simply couldn't find which one had been blaring out. I couldn't even find one that sounded anything similar to it. It was just an old clamshell phone branded with the network provider's name. It wasn't a smartphone or anything fancy. I have no idea what could have caused this music to start playing, and the phone has never done anything like it in the past. It never happened again either. I did think it could have been a fault with the phone, but that doesn't explain why I could never find the creepy ringtone in the options screen, or why I could never find a way of getting the phone to replay the scary music. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.